Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series, where I interview a Black woman a day for the entire month of February. It's amazing conversations that inspire, make you laugh, and just be awesome. And today's episode, I am delighted to have Brooke Stachyra, who is a recovering journalist and writer, and the founder of Grown X Women. So we'll talk a lot about what she's up to these days, what she's seen in her past, and everything in between. Take a listen. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, Laura, how are you?
Oh, yeah, just interviewing folks day in and day out the month of February.
Hey, doing what you do and doing it well. I love it.
Thanks so much. So I'm sure you've heard the podcast. You know, the first question is always the same. I'm excited to hear what your answer will be. So, Brooke, what was your first job?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in three parts because to me, there are different levels of jobs. So my first job when I was a teen, like my first job ever, was babysitting. And what I did was I babysat after school for a few kids in the neighborhood, got to make a little money every week. It was like a ridiculously low amount of money, like $5 an hour. But back then, I was able to go to the movies and do stuff I needed to do. And I it was money. It was money. And my parents always taught me, I never had an allowance growing up. So, I mean, if I needed to buy something, they gave me money, but there was no allowance. So it was important for me to be able to babysit on weekends and stuff. So that kind of taught me how to handle money, and that money was important. So that was my first one. My second one, I consider this like my first job where you had to pay taxes. I was a freshman at Hunter College in New York, and I helped open the first Victoria's Secret in New York, which was a flagship store on 57th Street. And that was my introduction. Yeah, it was pretty impressive because it was formerly they were connected back then with Henry Bendel's, and it was like a big deal. The Express Company owned Victoria's Secret, and they had this really cool building, which I don't even know if Victoria's Secret's still there. It might still be in that building, but it had a glass elevator, and it was my first adult job where I was like, wait a minute, my check came and I worked this many hours, but why is the check so low? I learned about
taxes. You're not your friend.
Yeah, all the Social Security and all the little things they had taken out. You're sitting there shocked when you finally get your check. But what that job did, and what was so important to me, was I learned about retail. I'd never worked in retail before. And I learned how to deal with people. And that led to other jobs in retail. I mean, I worked at Barney's. I worked my way through college at Barney's, New York, the original Barney's in Chelsea. And I learned how to deal with people. You have difficult people. Oh, absolutely. Just communicating with people, being able to kind of figure out what they were looking for. And there's a social art to having to communicate with people who are there to buy something or not to. You had to be able to tell, is this a waste of time to help this? Is this person going to buy or not? But you always had to be, you're representing the company. You had to be a certain way. So I learned a lot, especially at Barney's. I dealt with a lot of celebrities at Barney's, and it taught me that you couldn't be like, oh my God, there's Brad Pitt. Oh my God, there's Madonna. You had to, oh, hello, how are you? What can I do for you today? And it taught me to kind of have a certain persona with people who were important or wealthy or, famous. And that kind of led into my third first job, which was in my field. When I graduated right before graduating from college, I did a year-long internship at WNBC. And I ended up working with Al Roker. And I noticed the year that I was there, he was extremely supportive and wonderful and let me book things. And, if he had to do a remote, he'd say, oh, it's going to be warm, find somewhere cool. And he really let me become involved and was one of the best mentors I could have chosen for someone that decided to go into communications and, was working at WNBC kind of shiny and new. And he recommended that I go into the NBC Page program. And I said to him, "You're crazy. I'm not wearing that. You know, I'm working at Barney's, Laura. You know, I'm not going to wear that polyester uniform. Are you kidding me?
Nope, no way. Right.
The jacket and the
he's
skirt."
like, "Do it," and he's like,
he was like, I said to him, "I'm going to Europe. I'm going to graduate in May, and I'm going to tour Europe." And he said, "No, you're not." He said, "You're going to interview there." He's like, "I want you to apply, and you're going to do this." And I applied, and I don't know, for those who don't know about the NBC Page program, it is one of the most prestigious media programs in the country, probably in the world. It's very hard to get into. And I didn't know that because I'm like, who are these people walking around with the polyester uniforms giving tours? You know? And he was like, "No, this is an opportunity, and I think you'd be good." And I got into the program. I did every step. I did the first interview. I did the group interview. I did all of that and ended up, I think there were 10 of us in the group interview. It might've been 8, but only like 3 or 4 of us got in that particular, interview. And that kind of led me to, again, I was the page for Letterman, and I was the page for SNL, and I had both assignments at the same time. At the same time, I think I'm the only page to both of them wanted me, and I was able to work it out to do Letterman from Thursday to Friday, and then just on Saturday night, I worked with Calvin Klein's daughter, Marcy Klein, who went on to do 30 Rock, but was then the talent. She was the talent coordinator for the show. And so I would come Saturday night and do the green room and welcome these famous people. And I didn't freak out because I was like, "Oh yeah, I've seen you in your underwear at Barney's." It was, "Oh, hey, how are you?" So all those things kind of led up to what I ended up doing. And it's incredible how these jobs that you would think, "Oh wait, you were in retail and then you went to NBC." They all kind of, there was this path that then led to, I went from a page program, left and went to WNBC, to working the show before the Today Show, so Today in New York, and then ended up getting offered a job at NBC News and worked there for 2 years, and then went to People Magazine where I was for 13 years, and it all kind of followed.
Oh my gosh. Wow. There's so much there. I mean, we'll talk about Barney's offline, because I got stories for you.
I got stories for you. There's a Barney's book in there, and now that they're closed, I could do it.
Exactly. All right. So you're at People for 13 years. So how do we get to be chatting today? What's that journey been like since then?
Well, the thing is, I'm so glad you asked that, because I was so excited to be invited to do this with you. As a woman of color, you are someone who, when we met, you were so vibrant and we connected. And so thank you for having me, by the way. I'm so happy to be here. And I thought,
to have you.
Well, thank you. I just thought what I could contribute is, you mentioned before that I'm a recovering journalist. And I stole that term from my friend Abby West, who I worked with many years ago at People Magazine, and we've been good friends for 15 years. And she is still in media, but works for Audible, and she's incredible. She's also a woman of color. And I kind of stole that term because so many of us, specifically women of color in journalism, have had to reinvent ourselves. If you've worked at Time Inc., no matter who you are, you probably have experienced a layoff. And for me at the time, you have to understand, Laura, I started at People Magazine when I was 26 years old. 26. And during my time there, I had 2 children. I went from full-time to part-time. Time Inc. was very generous in like how they allowed people to kind of job share or work different days. And my identity was Brooke Stachyra from People Magazine. It was like part of my name. So 13 years in, when I was surprised with this, you're getting laid off, a week after I'd done the sexiest man. Like I was one of 10 people who knew who the sexiest man that year was. And completely taken by surprise. And at a point in my marriage where I knew it probably wasn't going to last much longer, and about to turn 40. So I'm 39 years old now. It's right before the holidays, and I get this news. And I think I spent several months just kind of sitting there going, who am I? I'm no longer Brooke Stachyra from People Magazine. That name, that in its whole, opened doors. It was like, you know that what the garage genie is? Have you heard of a garage genie? It's the little remote that opens the garage door.
Yes.
That was my idea. If I got on the phone, people weren't taking phone calls. Oh, they're not letting anybody else into this party. Oh, it's Brooke Stachyra from People Magazine. That door opened right up. And now that garage genie it no longer works. The batteries have rotted. The doors aren't opening. And that was the first time in a long time that I had to learn to reinvent myself, because when you've been at a job for 13 years at a magazine that's the #1 magazine in the country, you do not ever consider that you're going to lose that job. And it was a real smack in the face, along with a whole bunch of other things that were going on in my life. And I got through it. I found other things to do. I worked in marketing for a year. At one point, I was about 41, 42. I was working for a boutique firm that handled Trojan condoms. And I was working with 20-something-year-old, like young guys who literally were like, boobies, and start laughing. And I go, that's, boys, this isn't funny. So the things that I've seen and the places that I felt uncomfortable as a woman of color, as a woman of a certain age, you just kind of have to take it and blend in and learn. And, even with that only lasted a year. And so my life has been so much reinvention. And I'm at a point now, Laura, where I have been laid off so many times that I'm just kind of like, okay, we got to do this again. My last gig, I was able to kind of do what a lot of journalists do who aren't finding regular work, who are doing freelance work, which is go to university level. And I was so blessed to get a director job at CUNY at the Graduate School of Journalism. And I loved my job. I loved it because I worked with journalists. In fact, one of the professors there was my old journalism professor from City College, which is where I ended up graduating from. And, I was just so proud to be working with her in some capacity. So all of these amazing professors and journalists were working with these young journalists who were getting their graduate degrees. And as director of alumni services, I had the great pleasure of being a mentor, of learning all about their lives, getting involved in newsletters that, for the first time were showing who got married, who had babies, and gave like a little more of a personal spin to the other alumni. And I loved it. The alumni were the best part of the job, learning about them, collaborating with them. And 2 years ago in December's a bad month for me because that's when it happened with people also. But like right before December, they told me that the department was restructuring and they were choosing not to renew my contract, which was ending. Another shock. And I was like, that's okay, because I've done this before. Laura, you've been there where you're like, you get news and you're like, but that's okay because I'm a grown woman and I'm going to figure this out. And I was like, I'm going to take some time off. And then, in a few months, I'll start looking, I'll talk to people. There's got to be something else out there. There are other schools, what have you. And then March hit and COVID hit and everything shut down. And I've spent basically the last 2 years trying to figure out what am I going to do. So it's not that I was sitting around. I'm I'm very blessed, and I've had a lot of really great resources. I've gotten to meet people like you who have been encouraging and given me suggestions and said, "Hey, I heard about this." But what I did was I went back to school, which for me was really drastic because I hate school. I'm not a studious person. I enjoy living life, but you tell me I have to do an assignment and I have to read stuff, and I'm just like, oh God, my head starts to hurt. And I don't know if you're like that too, but with certain things, it's like, you have to write a paper or something. And I'm like, I haven't done that in so long. I don't really want to do this, but it was recommended to me that that the TESOL program, which is teaching English as a secondary language program. And basically I applied for it in the summer of 2020 and ended up doing Zoom for 3 months. It was so funny. I told my sister, who's an educator, an amazing teacher, and she said, your summer's ruined. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, it's 3 nights a week, you Zoom. She was like, your summer's ruined. My summer was totally ruined, Laura. Completely. I literally was sitting there watching people outside frolic, and I was on Zoom.
And you're like,
and also, just because you speak English well, and I speak English very well, breaking it down to teach it to others is a completely different scenario. It's a monster. But I did it. I got my certificate. Are there any jobs out there for teachers? Nope. You fill in here, you fill in there. But I was proud that I'd gone back to school and gotten basically like a master's level, certificate to teach. That then did not turn into a job, but I wanted to keep going. So I basically spent the last year, after getting vaxxed, after getting boosted, trying to meet with people, social distance, but meet with people, applied for a lot of jobs, and then ended up this summer taking classes through Coursera at Yale, University of Michigan. I just took a Queering the Schoolhouse course, which teaches you how to be an advocate for students who are LGBTQ+, and hoping that, when I apply for some of these jobs, that they will see that I've been working on my skills and, ready to get back in there and help in any way I can, working for a university, working with student services, working with alumni. And that's been kind of slow going. But it came to a point where I was like, I need to do something. I have all these certificates. I have all these accolades. I'm meeting fantastic people like you, Laura. And I see what you're doing. And there's something inside me that just says, there's joy. When I listen to you interviewing, when I listen to your podcast, there's joy because you're happy what you're doing. It comes to me like this is natural for you and that you're passionate about what you're doing. And my goal in the end is to be passionate in what I'm doing. So I basically have been working on some sort of project. I don't know if it's a podcast. I don't know if it's a TV show. I don't know if it's TikTok. I do not know. But I do know that I believe that I have the passion and what it takes to be some sort of presence. Maybe I'm an ambassador for Gen X women. I know it's something I know well. It's something I'm proud of. And about a month ago, I said, I'm going to start something, and it's going to have to be with Gen X. And have you ever seen the film Boogie Nights with?
Of course.
Okay, it's iconic. So there's a point where the main character is sitting in a hot tub, And they're like, what's your porn name going to be? And he's like, I don't know. I was thinking Dirk Diggler. And this kind of neon sign goes up above his head. And they're like, that's it. And I had a moment like that where it was like, I'm going grown ass. Well, I don't want to say grown ass. That's a little too edgy. But the term, I'm a grown ass man. I'm a grown ass woman. And I was like, what about grown X women? We're Gen X. We're grown X. And it was like that Dirk Diggler sign went up. I was like, that's it. And in fact, if you look at the our graphic, which my beautiful, wonderful daughter who you've met, India, made for me, it's a neon sign that says grown X women. And I made it women because I wanted to be inclusive. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm taking this reinvention thing and trying to make it into something where maybe I can be the go-to when somebody needs someone on a panel or as a guest on their talk show or wants to collab with. I can be that person that can come and talk about the ups and downs of the woman that was born between 1965 and 1980. And that's where I am.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I think it's great timing because as lots of people notice, so this episode is taping right after Super Bowl, and lots of people were commenting on the fact that this halftime show was the Gen X halftime show. Because
absolutely.
Dr. Dre is 56, Snoop Dogg is 50, Mary is 51, 50 is 46. And so, I think there is a lot of confusion around where Gen X is because, technically, depending on what you read, Gen X is either 65 to 77, 65 to 80, 65 to 75. It all there is a wild mix in terms of where that bucket of where Gen X kind of falls, but oftentimes it's the forgotten generation when talking about, because they also confuse millennials. So like millennials starts at 1980, 81, 82, 83.
Right. It shifts depending on what graph you're looking at. It shifts. But the thing is, I fit into, even if you change those dates, I was born in 1969. I'll be 53 next month. I fit into that. But what you talk about forgotten, don't call me a boomer. My kids all the time say, okay, boomer. And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with being a boomer. God bless the baby boomers and all their recognition, but I'm not a boomer. And we are starting to talk more and more about Gen X because we're at that age. We're at the age. Here's what's so funny. We are at the age that the women in the Golden Girls were.
Right.
And I look at that show and I'm like, I'm not all gray hair. I mean, I love the show. I love them, but they were considered old. And I don't feel like I'm some relic at this point. I feel older. And then you look at something like, and just like that, they're the same age as the Golden Girls, but they're dating and,
Yeah, I mean, but there also was this huge issue. It's like people were not happy about seeing that, like, Carrie had a husband who died. She had hip surgery. Charlotte was going through menopause, and it's like, but people get older, and you need to actually see that and acknowledge that, and also talk to this generation because you all are the best generation because you were digital and analog. So you remember what critical theory and thinking looks like because you knew what the world looked like before Google. But also, when you were in business, you took both sides of that house.
Right. And it's so funny you said that because I was discussing this with a friend who was like, make sure to mention that we're the generation that we didn't have cell phones growing up, but our kids did, and we had them to use with our kids. So we didn't grow up with it, but we incorporated this technology into our lives, and the children that we brought up or the younger people that we've seen grow up, they were automatic to them, but we learned all of these things. We learned about laptops. We learned about the smartphones. And that's important to say. And also, I think going back to what you said about, and just like that, that's what's happening. I'm going through menopause. I'm having hot flashes, and I want to be able to talk about it and not make it into this, oh, it's so it is awful, but we get through it. We get through it and we support each other. We should be able to talk about this. We should be able to talk about injuries that before you just walk it off. And now you have to go see the doctor, or you need, you need to put a brace on for a day. Get a shingles shot. I don't know if you've had a shingles shot, but it knocks the crap out of you. You have to do it.
You have to do it. And I'm just like, and I think it's because, like, I have lots of friends who are technically Gen X, and I'm an elder millennial because I was born in the 80s. And it's like, you have to acknowledge that this is the life we all are in. But also, there's so much of the generations of understanding what the world was like when everything wasn't instantaneous, was really important. And so we
watch technology, and what's even funnier? You were just talking about the I just want to go back to you mentioning last night's Gen X filled halftime show. I was on Facebook, and a friend of mine posted about it, and one of her friends was like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't even really tune in. Who wants to watch a bunch of rappers who rap a bunch of people who rapped about cop killing on stage?" And I'm thinking, man, are you still hanging on to that? So my comment back was, just FYI, Dre has not rapped about cop killing in about 25 years, and he started Beats. And here's an article from the LA Times about the new high school he's starting in the Compton area to give back to the community, so that kids and young people in the area have an arts high school. So so what about that? Okay, we've come a long way. We've all come a long way.
Who was there cheering Snoop Dogg on? None other than Martha Stewart. So everyone just shut your mouth.
Right, exactly.
Like,
are they
not
best
friends? They are the best of friends and business partners. So, like, everyone can just chill. And who's been in jail longer? Martha Stewart versus Snoop Dogg. FYI.
Exactly. There you go.
So,
there you go.
Like, let's be really real about that.
I would love to collaborate with Snoop. I have to tell you the other thing that I would love to do if everything in the world was perfect, and I've talked very publicly about this, so it's no secret or anything, but I would love to do a cannabis show, a show about people's experience with cannabis now that it's so much more open and there are dispensaries and it's becoming legal, or in New York it's not legal, but it's decriminalized, so depending on as long as you're not dealing or anything, you're not going to get in trouble. And it's opened up a world for me to be able to openly discuss with people their experiences. And I would have loved to, if someone called me right now and said, "We want you on this show, you can be one of our hosts and be the fun person talking about cannabis," I'd do it in a minute. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the world that we're in right now. And I think that's the thing folks are forgetting, that, like, the world's just completely changed. All the walls have come down. The ability to actually communicate with people has just been made so much easier. So let's just do it. Let's just have great conversations with great people who have actually lived. I mean, like, oftentimes people say that I'm an old soul because I tend to, like, have a lot of friends who are a lot older than me. And I'm like, because I'd like to learn from people who understand the world around me. And I also have tons of friends who are Gen Z. And I think it's like, we need to have friends who touch different aspects of the world, who see the world differently. And so much of this has been like this youth obsessed culture. And I'm like, who can afford to buy stuff? Gen Xers.
Yes, absolutely. We're at that point, especially someone like me whose kids, my both of my daughters are adults now and out of school. And so I'm not at that point, although some in Gen X who are on the lower end are still raising children and saving up for college. But there are a group of us that are certainly influential in buying things and being consumers. And that's important. And it's so funny. I also see you as a young person as a younger person than me, but with an older soul. You're extremely experienced. For someone your age, you've done a lot. And so it's sometimes I have to get that reminder that, oh, wait a minute, no, Laura's still a millennial, but you get the whole Gen X thing and you can hang with us easily. And to be that versatile, like I said, I think is amazing.
My brothers are Gen X, so like it's like, no, I've been an older, younger child for a very long time, so my whole life.
They make you grow up a little bit, huh?
A little bit quicker. Okay, so I think this Gen X conversation is so important because, again, I think it's also necessary for folks to understand that, like, you kept going. So, like, when you had a challenge where you're like, there's no way I'm getting through this, you kept reinventing yourself. And I think that's a really important message to keep sharing with younger people who are listening, because I think, because there's so much pressure put on younger folks that you have to have everything sorted out by the time you're 25, that leads to all kinds of issues, whether they be mental health and stress. And I think it's really important for folks to really understand the race is not for the swift. It is a journey.
Oh, absolutely. It's a journey. And I think also they tend to not look at the resources and opportunities they have. And again, when I was at CUNY, my favorite thing was being able to mentor, counsel alumni and students, and they ranged from Gen Z to millennial. And what I found was that when we sit down and just kind of calm things, look at your life. If you are single and don't have children and aren't tied down to a place, there's a lot of opportunity. So while you have that opportunity, travel. Take a job somewhere that you're not particularly comfortable. Because guess what? If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. It's not like you're dragging your whole family. It's not like you've got all of these things tying you down. And that's what I want to share. If I can do it and I can reinvent myself and take chances, and again, I'm very blessed, then certainly people who young people who are millennials and who are Gen Z can do that. This is the advice I give to my own children who have not taken conventional paths. I'm not the one who's going to say to them, "Oh, you have to take that job. You're so stupid." That this is a great opportunity. Although I think I might do that for the PAGE program. I listened to someone I respected, and it was the right thing to do. But I have seen there was no such thing as a gap year. Come on, Laura, was there gap years for you? Gap year was you couldn't afford school that year, or you were in academic probation, so you took some time off. There wasn't I'm making a choice. You finished school first, unless there was a reason, something came up and you couldn't. You didn't do gap year. So you look at, like, this is just part of life. Nobody scoffs at a gap year. They're like, oh, she went to Spain, or she did it, she built a yurt and went to a commune in Israel. Like, nobody thinks that's weird at all. So we've changed our perception of what you have to do. And it's such a great world, I think, for younger people. And, I'm doing my part by just kind of saying, I'm going to try something new. I have a video right now on Instagram, because right now we started with Instagram. And basically it says, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. I'm not afraid to tell you right now, I am figuring this out. I need people's help to figure out what the content should be. I'm going to try different things. Some of them are going to be popular. Others are going to have 2 or 3 likes. I'm going to figure out how to get the following. I'm going to figure out how to get the word out. And guess what? If it doesn't work in the end, I will still be very proud to say that I tried this. That's all I can do.
Fantastic. That's all you can do.
I do think it will lead to something else. Everything I've done has had a purpose in the journey that is my life. And I've had so many interesting things happen over the years. I feel very blessed. And one of those things I would say to people who are younger is be open to new things, to new people. I would not have met you if I were not open. When I see a certain energy, I'm like, hi, I introduce myself. What do you do? How can we, what can we do together? And,
Exactly.
this is why we're speaking today. And I think it's wonderful that people like you exist, Laura, because you are promoting your fellow people of color, women, period. And I like that. I really love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It really it means a lot. So, question for you:
Sure.
Do you what do you do for your self care? Like, how does Brooke take care of Brooke?
Wow. It's been tough during COVID, but one of the things that I did, and this may sound like a little bit like I can just see my father from heaven right now going, rolling his eyes, like, you're turning your brain to mush. But I love binging TV and movies and finding new content. That to me just kind of gives me a little bit of a mental break, but stimulation at the same time. Ideas, entertainment. I My guilty pleasure is every single Real Housewives show around. I love
Same.
it. I love it. I love what I'm just sitting there, and my partner, he's like, "Are we really watching this?"
Yes, we are.
He is. He's like, "Please, not." He was like, "Which Real Housewife is this?" And he confuses them. But that to me is being able to just kind of zone out, watch a good reality show or series like Sex in the City or And Just Like That or The Gilded Age or something on Netflix. I watch a lot. I binge a lot of shows. I'm able to kind of discover and rediscover. Like during the first summer of COVID in 2020, I watched Girlfriends from beginning to end. Like I hadn't seen it in so long, and it was on Netflix. And to kind of rediscover Joan and her journey from the first season to the last season was really, that was it was a joy because I'd only seen it on TV kind of here and there. And she's one of our grown ex women, so it just being able to kind of experience that again. And I'm just trying to think for I just got a Peloton. It's care, but I'm going to be honest with you. I do it because I'm trying to take better care of my physical self, but I hate it. I really hate it. Like I'm on the bike going, when is this going to end? I just can't. And I what I've learned to do is music is very influential in my life. So I look for classes with certain types of music. Like they just got the license to use David Bowie. So I've been doing a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
Bowie rides. And yeah, and that motivates me. I can get through the class if I love the music. But if I'm not into the
Awesome.
music, I'm like dying. So those are basically the things, and love and kind of connecting with my kids and people like you and new friends and old friends. That's important to me. I think socialization and being social, talking to people, connecting in that way, that that's very good for my soul. I'm someone who also suffers from depression. It runs in my family, and these are things that help with my depression.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so much for
that's
sharing.
how I do that. Of course. Oh no, I'm all about mental health and awareness, and I think we should talk about it. I have no shame in my depression. I think I have a therapist. I speak to her weekly, and she has helped me. I've been with her for about 13, 14 years. She has helped me through all of these changes in my life and been a constant for me. I highly recommend to anyone older, from any boomers, Gen X, millennials, Z, if you're feeling that pressure, talk to someone, get help. Don't be afraid of prescription medication from a licensed person, these are chemical imbalances sometimes, and they need to be balanced. And I'm not ashamed of those things at all. I think we need to talk more about it and tell other people they're not alone. They are not alone.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's, especially after the last 2 years we've all had, it's very important that folks share that, be honest with it, and get the help that they need. And there's no shame in that at all. Now, last question for you. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Well, here's my ask. My give is I'm doing this Gen X Women. I want people to like it. I want to make you laugh. I want to make you smile. And my ask is please follow the Instagram page. It's at Grown X Women. That's grown with a capital X, women plural. And just let me know what you want to see. If you want me to talk about Real Housewives, I'll do it. Should I be doing silly TikToks? What can I do to contribute to the content in the social media world? What would you like to see me doing? That's my ask, because I'm listening and I want to contribute. I don't want to just be sitting here waiting to, for retirement to come. I want to get back out there. So again, my give is here I am. I got a lot to offer. And my ask is, how can I do that? What can I do for you? How can I be productive and in this world that will help you in some way?
Awesome. Well, Brooke, you're just such a delight and so wonderful. I'm so glad to have met you. And I knew having you on the podcast would just be a wealth of wisdom and fun. So thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Oh, thank you. I'm feeling magical right now, and you're incredible and magical. So thank you for letting me be part of it. And just keep doing what you're doing. I love listening. I love hearing the answers and the different women you're speaking to. And I just want to continue to be a part of this journey. So I hope you'll have me back.
I will indeed. You know I will.
Awesome. And I hope that I have some new things to contribute. The next time we talk, I hope I have really great updates to share.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, we'll put all of the details in the show notes for folks to follow Grown X Women on all the social medias and connect with Brooke. Tell her what you want to hear and she'll do it. And that is our show.